Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, color us shocked there. Just as we had been predicting from the moment we heard about the fact that Lord of the Rings, the War of Rohirrim, was going to be nothing more than a girl boss kind of garbage nonsense. And of course, the trailer later confirmed all of that kind of stuff. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am happy and pleasantly surprised to report to you that the international box office for this movie on its opening weekend has absolutely turned into a disastrous dumpster fire. Yes, boys and girls, one might say it bombed at the box office. And wow, oh wow, the cope inside of some of these predictions out there and why this movie is not going to do well is absolutely hilarious. But at the end of the day, boys and girls, 2 + 2 still equals 4. And whether or not you end up loving The Lord of the Rings, The Rohirrim of Rohirrim or not, and you have no problem with all of the girl boss nonsense from an unnamed character by Tolkien, well, at the end of the day, guess what? It's still going to turn into another disastrous dumpster fire and flop at the box office. And guess what, Warner Brothers? You did it to yourself. Because as you can see over here from our dear sweet friend John F. Trent over at fandompulse.substack.com, The Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim bombs in its international box office debut. And yes, boys and girls, it wasn't like there was just some small little debut. No. There was thousands of places around the world that this thing debuted, and not a single one of them wanted to go see it. And why? Because, boys and girls, as usual, the audience, that paying customer, is smarter than all of those elites out there in Hollywood who think they're better than you, that think they're smarter than you, because guess what? They have woken up to the nonsense. They are truly, actually awake to what Hollywood has been doing for so many years. And as soon as they get a single sniff of it, just like over there in the gaming industry, as soon as we get a single sniff of Sweet Baby Inc. being involved in something, as soon as people get a sniff of this girl boss kind of nonsense agenda, much like what we got in Rings of Power, guess what? People don't want no part of it, because there was a lot of people that were cautiously optimistic about Rings of Power. But as soon as we saw the kind of girl boss nonsense right from the trailer, all of that excitement and all of that intrigue went right down the toilet. And guess what? You've got the exact same thing here with The Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim. And hey, Hollywood, you've done it to yourself. And here you go, another disastrous dumpster fire at the box office. So we're going to check out this article. We're going to get all of the juicy details and you can see exactly how bad the numbers are looking so far. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below. Does it surprise you at all that the international box office is already so bad? Do you believe the cope and the seething you hear from a lot of the Hollywood outlets out there that, well, it's because it's anime? Or do you believe that the Lord of the Rings franchise is just completely, the fan base out there is just completely and totally done with all this kind of girl boss nonsense? They are smarter than Hollywood has figured it out, and that's why they're not going to see this movie and not even giving it a chance. Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. And if you do enjoy our content, please consider supporting out there by checking out the links in the description down below and become a member. It'd be really, really nice to get to that 100 members mark that we so desperately need to get to, boys and girls. So from John F. Trent over there at fandompulse.substack.com, Warner Brothers' upcoming The Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim animated film bombed in its release at various international box offices, only bringing a total of $2 million. According to Variety's Rebecca Rubin, the film debuted in 3,410 theaters and in 31 different countries, but was only able to garner just a total of $2 million. That's it. $2 million wouldn't have paid for the catering for all of the people that worked on this film out there, boys and girls. $2 million. That is pathetic, because I guarantee you this thing cost them at least 50 to, if not $100 million. This is not going to bode well for the future of this movie out there. This thing is going to turn into a disastrous dumpster fire. The highest performing locations were Spain with 347,000 and Mexico with 239,000 and Thailand with $146,000. That is pathetic, boys and girls. And hey, guess what? This is what you get because the audience is smarter than you and they want no part of your girl boss narrative. It's the latest piece of bad news for the film. Sean Robbins at Box Office Theory significantly downgraded the film's domestic box office expectations in his latest forecast update on December 5th. Robbins had originally predicted the film would gross between $15 million and $24 million in its opening weekend. He specifically predicted the film would only gross $17.5 million. As for its which, by the way, that is bad to begin with as well. That would have still guaranteed that they were going to lose money on this film. As for its total domestic box office haul, Robbins believed it would bring in between 44 million and 84.5 million. He specifically noted it would do just 49.5 million. Actually, there you go. Once again, another confirmed flop. This movie is going to flop. He then explained at the time, the anime approach with this prequel is likely to hinder what is usually a broader audience appeal for the Lord of the Rings franchise. Yes, boys and girls, there's the cope. It has nothing to do with the girl boss narrative behind a completely and totally unnamed character that they just decided to pull randomly out of the blue to instead take over Helmerhand's complete and total story. No. It's because it's animated. Needless to say, I remember something about an animated Hobbit film that's absolutely loved and appreciated by fans, Lord of the Rings fans worldwide. Me thinks the animation has absolutely nothing to do with that. But by all means, cope and keep your head in the sand even longer over there at box office, because guess what? Until you actually wake up and realize the problem with all of this kind of stuff going forward, none of this will ever heal, none of this will ever get better. But at the end of the day, the audience still decides, and the audience is going to decide that Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim, will turn into a disastrous flop at the box office. However, he adds, still, the medium has proven strong even with lesser known titles in the domestic market, so Rings could attract some attention here as a counterplayer, perhaps not too dissimilar to how Godzilla Minus One aided the market late last year. Yeah, a movie that actually fans and audiences loved that told a really good Godzilla story. Yeah, color it. I don't think this is going to come anywhere close to that. Now, Robbins downgraded his opening weekend's prediction 43%. Almost half he has cut his predictions in. He now predicts the film will only gross between 8 million and 13 million. Specifically, he claims it would do $10 million. Boys and girls, that might be a lot of money to you and me out there, but holy cow, that is squat. That is next to nothing for a domestic box office haul. This is going to be bad. This is going to be worse than the Marvels, boys and girls. This is going to be worse than just about anything else we have seen out there. It's going to be worse than Bros. It sounds like it's going to be worse than Bros, boys and girls. Holy cow. As for the film's total domestic run, he also downgraded those 47%. He now predicts it will only bring in between 23 and 37 million, and he specifically predicted it will do just 26 million. If that's all it does, that is going to end up losing money. Lord of the Rings World of Warhammer is slower out the gate than its early pre-sales modeling than predicted. The pre-existing Tolkien fan base would normally be expected to generate noticeable upfront demand, but the anime nature of this film could also skew the typical demographics for the previous live-action based franchises. Yeah, it has nothing to do with what Rings of Power has done to the franchise. It has nothing to do that you very much heavily have a girl boss hanging with all that kind of stuff. No. It's because it's animated. The fans don't want it. But here's the real reason, as John likes to point out. It's also likely that Tolkien fan base is not interested in the film's feminist messaging, which it has made apparent in its marketing by marketing the unnamed daughter of Helm Hammerhand, the protagonist of the film, rather than Helm Hammerhand himself. Producer Philippa Boyens attempted to justify this, saying that, they just feel they need more strong female characters. It was so fascinating to them, and yada, because she's going to be the girl boss, wonderful, absolutely bestest at everything. She's going to show how all the boys have done. She's going to completely and totally upstage her father, and she's going to be the one that saves everybody, not Helm Hammerhand. And we've already seen that from the trailer. It's already been confirmed because we see her facing off against the main big bad out there, and so it's going to be exactly what we all expect, boys and girls. So why is this movie going to flop? Because of what John Trent pointed out, what we talked about at the beginning of the video, what we've been calling out time and time again. Box Office Pro can blame it on the animation style, and they can cope and seethe all they want about all of that kind of stuff, but how this thing is going to not do well at the box office. If they have had to already admit that this thing is going to flop, there is no way Warner Brothers makes a single penny off this movie. And why? Because they decided to go down the path of diversity, inclusion, and equity. They decided to go with the strong women power nonsense, and we've seen how well that's worked out for Marvel. We've seen how well that's worked out for Star Wars. It just simply does not go out there in any way, shape, or form with the actual audience. The people, that problematic audience that Disney likes to call us. Yes, because guess what? That problematic audience is actually the ones that make you money at the box office. This disastrous dumpster fire garbage is not going to do that. I don't think there's any reason at all to doubt the fact that I think this is basically confirmed at this point that this movie will end up being a flop at the box office. When you go with this kind of agenda, when you try to take this kind of stuff, when you try to rewrite Tolkien's own stories, this is what happens every single time. We saw exactly what happened with the Rings of Power, who completely decided to warp and change and damage and destroy all of Tolkien's wonderful lore, his history, as it happened, because they wanted to remake it in their image. And we see how well that's worked out for them. They have literally lost half of their audience, more than half of their audience from season 1's episode 1 to the very last one, because Tolkien fans are smarter than them, and they always have been. All any fan actually wants is an honest, true adaptation to things exactly as they've seen in the books, exactly as they're seen in the source material, and just put it on the big screen. It doesn't matter if it's animated, it doesn't matter if it's a live action. We just want a proper source material, accurate story. But Hollywood seems to be unable to give us that. Why? Because they're egotists, they're narcissists, they're psychopaths who believe that they are smarter, faster than anyone that has ever come before, and that they will remake it in their own image. Well, that didn't work out very well for the devil, and it certainly doesn't work out very well for Hollywood. Every time they do this, it turns into another disastrous dumpster fire. It's really easy. Anime out there and manga out there in Japan have the exact idea right. What do? They literally match it identically to the manga in a lot of cases. One of my favorite examples that I like to bring up is, of course, none other than Black Clover, where literally I thought I had, since the series, the anime is no longer going on right now, I thought I had to pick up the manga, and I went ahead and picked up the very last issue that actually represented the last season or the last portion of the episodes that I had watched, and guess what? I didn't need to buy it at all. Why? Because it was identical to what I saw put on the anime, what I saw put on my television. And guess what? That's how you succeed. Hollywood, stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Understand that there are incredible people out there. If you think your ideas are so great, go make your own thing. But we know you can't do that because you're unsuccessful hacks out there who nobody out there would, in their bright mind, would want to listen to any of your diversity, inclusion, and equity nonsense characters. That's why this stuff doesn't pan out, and that's why The Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim, will bomb at the box office. Girl boss harder, because like the saying goes, if you dance with the devil, you're going to get burned. And Warner Brothers, you have once again been burned again. And it's a beautiful thing to see.